Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and the French President Emmanuel Macron will dial in virtually to that Rome conference from London. Macron is continuing his state visit in the UK, where he'll attend a second Ukraine conference later today called the Coalition of the Willing. Zelensky says he's set to discuss more financing for drone interceptors and air defense with partners there. We're going to talk more about the situation in Ukraine with Peter Zalmayev, the director of the Eurasian Democracy Initiative. Peter, thanks for taking the time to speak with us. Let's start first with this pledge of 10 billion euros for Ukraine that came already out of the conference in Rome this morning. When you have the World Bank saying Ukraine actually needs 500 billion to rebuild, I mean, 10 billion, while it seems like a lot of money, also seems to be just a drop in that ocean.
I'll tell you more. Prime Minister Mr. Shmyhal said that Ukraine will be actually needing close to $1 billion. I'm sorry, $1 trillion. These are such astronomical sums. It's easy to get confused, you know. And coupled with what President Zelensky said, as you mentioned in your report, we need a new Marshall Plan for Ukraine. Once again, this is an understatement. Marshall Plan, let me remind you, covered 16 countries in Europe. And in today's dollars amounted to about $160 billion. So this is literally 6 times larger, the amount. And Ursula von der Leyen is actually correct. This is an astronomical amount that is absolutely unprecedented. And it's, of course, we should welcome the $13 billion that's already been announced. But once again, this is a drop in the ocean, considering the humongous needs ahead of us.
So given that, are you hopeful for what else is going to come out of these talks today in Rome and the UK for Ukraine?
I'm hopeful that sooner or later Europeans will have to make a very tough decision. And it's going to be a political decision. It's going to be an economic and financial decision. What to do about Russia's frozen assets. I've been saying this over and over and over again since the beginning of the war, including in your programs, about how Europe needs to put its foot down and decide once and for all that Russia's unprecedented behavior in Ukraine calls forth unprecedented decisions on the part of the European Union. Yes, decisions that may portend for the near future problems for its financial sector when it comes to credibility, etc. But the larger issue of credibility of Europe's collective defense and defense of its allies, such as Ukraine, is at stake here. We're talking about $300 billion in Russia's frozen assets. And what kind of justice can we be talking about if Russia gets off the hook and someone else picks up the tab for this astronomical sum that will be required to pay for Ukraine's recovery?
Peter, what about the American piece of this puzzle? I mean, here we have Donald Trump, who's announcing that he's to send more weapons to Ukraine after announcing that those supplies would be reduced. I mean, what's going on when it comes to the U.S. and Ukraine?
Cannot update you on anything other than Donald Trump had another U-turn. He got finally fed up with Vladimir Putin's serial humiliations of him. And so far, we have a partial reversal of the decision and a renewal of at least some air defense and defensive weaponry, such as Patriot missiles. Above and beyond that, we don't know whether the U.S. will stand by Ukraine financially. At this point, I think Europeans now are being realistic about it, mindful that Donald Trump will undergo many more U-turns down the road, and Europe will have to step in with billions of dollars to help pay for this weaponry that we expect from the United States. So I think the minimal program that we have here is to have the U.S. at least sell Europeans the weapons that Ukraine needs.
And of course, at the moment, this isn't just about money and rebuilding Ukraine. The war is still ongoing. Fighting is still ongoing. We're hearing today that France and the UK are going to sign an agreement to coordinate their nuclear weapons. Do you think that France and the UK joining nuclear forces could act as some kind of dissuasion to Russia?
I think it's a serious signal that in the absence of America's support, continued muscular support of its European allies, and in the climate of the fraying of transatlantic unity, this sends a signal to Putin that we will not be pushed over. We have our own, strength to bring to the table. We can pool our efforts. We can overcome collective action problems. We can bring together the nuclear might of these two countries. And that actually will upset Vladimir Putin's plans that in the absence of America's help, Europe will be an easy prey. This is a strong signal that it will not be so.
In the meantime, of course, the fighting is ongoing. Ukrainian civilian casualties hit a 3-year high just last month in June. As you were saying before, Donald Trump getting increasingly frustrated with Vladimir Putin. How do you see options for a ceasefire at this point? Is that at all on the table in any capacity?
Not on the table. I mean, look, Vladimir Putin has been willing to risk this sort of ire, right, and anger of Donald Trump, new sanctions, new weapons deliveries, because he's feeling confident that having ratcheted up its production of ballistic missiles and drones, and with its summer offensive in the Sumy region of Ukraine, Putin has a good chance to, at the very least, if not bring Ukraine to its knees completely, then to knock off some more territory, and maybe by the end of the year, early 2026, finally engage in some sort of ceasefire talks on much better positions, much better conditions for Russia. So in a nutshell, my answer is unfortunately no.